Hello, welcome to Sojourn's travel webinar series. Today's edition is titled Using Facebook and Instagram to Fuel Recovery. And we're very excited we have a speaker from Facebook as our special guest. I am recording this here in the San Francisco Bay Area where Sojourn's global headquarters is located, but obviously none of us are working in the Sojourn office. We are all recording this here from the comfort of our own homes. So I ask everyone to be patient. I can hear the auto traffic outside, even though the windows are shut, and they're pretty decent windows when it comes to dampening sound. There are lawnmowers going. We have other guests have also warned us that they may have kids that burst in unannounced at any moment. Dogs barking, technical difficulties. Those are all the new reality from working from home. So just please be patient. We'll get through it, and we're sure to bring you a fantastic webinar like we always do. Today our special guest is Kirsten Frizzell. She's an industry manager at Facebook, and is going to talk to us about how travel marketers can use Facebook and Instagram to increase engagement and, of course, drive direct bookings. For me, I'm actually really excited to hear more about Instagram specifically. It's become a really hot place for travel marketing, travel influencers. There's lots of people creating really engaging, high quality content and doing it free of charge. Instagram has become an amazing resource, I think, for anyone who wants to get inspiration for travel. And so I know I'm personally excited to hear more from her about that. And then, of course, on all the webinars, we always try to talk about the travel industry in general and understand what the recovery process looks like. And so the data that I've really started to pay attention to is the TSA numbers that they have been releasing for free on the internet on a daily basis. Anyone can go and, of course, look these up, and you can see there's a steady increase the number of people screened by TSA, which is a very obvious way to measure the increase in air travel. And of course, I don't know if everyone's aware, but even the Canadian-U.S. border remains closed, and many countries around the world have borders closed depending on your nationality. People from the United States still can't travel to many countries in Europe. So I think given those restrictions, these numbers look really promising. We reached 726,000 the other day. We've been crossing over 800,000 people screened, right? Sunday was 841,000. It regularly crosses 800 now, a few times a week. And just to remind everybody, the low point in April for TSA screenings was under 90,000 people. Yeah, so we've come a long way. There's obviously much more to go. And for today's webinar, I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves because they can obviously do a much better job of it than I can. Why don't we start with our special guest from Facebook, Kirsten. Kirsten, why don't you tell us more about yourself?
Hi, everybody. I am Kirsten Frizzell. I'm an industry manager at Facebook on the travel vertical. I specifically focus on hotel, air, and cruise sub-verticals within travel, but am equipped to speak to sort of any of the other sub-verticals as well. I am joining from the Catskill Mountains, about 2 hours away from New York City. And so the wood paneling on my ceiling hopefully is an indication. And if you hear background noise, it is bustling trees because it is a little bit windy today. So I'm excited to see you all. I know I have some friends who have joined who I haven't been able to see in person. And thank you for having me, Sojourn.
Yeah, excellent. No, thank you for dialing in from the Catskill Mountains. Very beautiful place. I grew up on the East Coast and spent a lot of time upstate, and my mother lived in Vermont, so I know the Catskill Mountains very well. All right, and our Sojourn guest, Scott Marzicek, why don't you introduce yourself and tell our audience all about you?
Yeah, so hello everyone. Again, I'm Scott. I'm an analyst manager here at Sojourn. I've been with Sojourn for a little over 4.5 years now. The team I specifically manage focuses on Facebook, search engine marketing, and meta search for Sojourn. And again, I said I'm an analyst, so usually us analysts are tucked away in the corner, crunching the numbers, doing something nerdy. And so to be able to get the opportunity to speak to all you guys, for someone who has the feet on the ground, right, sees these campaigns on a daily basis, understands what campaign settings work well for people, what targeting tactics work well for people, to be able to shed some light on that, hopefully will be valuable for you guys. I'm based in Omaha, Nebraska. I've actually had some Wi-Fi issues today, so made the trek out to my mom's house in my childhood bedroom. So yeah, you can maybe show you some of my old kid collections later if you're interested as well. But definitely excited again to join. Hopefully, again, I can provide some value from someone who has more of that in the weeds kind of perspective on Facebook campaigns.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining, and thanks for making the effort to travel to your family's location in order to participate in today's webinar. I'm sure the lawnmowers will get going anytime soon and start drowning you out. So
exactly.
Thank you. And then I'm Gregory Kennedy. I'm the head of marketing here at Sojourn. And of course, for those that don't know what Sojourn is, I can't imagine there's many of you left on this webinar who don't know. But for those that don't, Sojourn is a company that provides digital marketing solutions for the travel industry. They're all powered by artificial intelligence, and they're built on our decade of experience spent analyzing the traveler path to purchase. We activate multi-channel brand and performance campaigns to drive direct demand. We call more than 10,000 hotels, attractions, touring boards around the world as customers. And so the one thing I want to say before we get started is that we will be sending out a survey to get feedback on our webinar series. So please look for the link. It'll appear later today in the software in the chat box, and you'll also get a link via email after the webinar. We definitely want your feedback, and we'll use it to improve the content and improve the Sojourn webinar experience for all of our attendees. And now, Kirsten is our first speaker. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Gregory. Before I start, I'd like to start by acknowledging the overwhelming impact COVID has had on our industry. I want to offer my sincerest empathy to all of you on this call, as I know how hard the past 6 months have been, and I know the road ahead of us is uncharted. My hope today is that you will leave with some insight on how to think about using Facebook and Instagram, the Facebook and Instagram platforms to fuel your recovery. Travel has been one of the earliest and hardest hit industries. Traveler perception around safety, economic impacts due to unemployment, and government restrictions on both domestic and international travel have caused a massive decline across our industry. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, it is estimated that the travel industry could lose up to $2.1 trillion in revenue and 75 million jobs just this year due to the virus. And we know that recovery to pre-COVID levels will take years for a lot of travel partners to fully recover. But as you continue to manage through the growing impacts, it's important to recognize some of the glimmers of recovery as regions emerge from virus levels of lockdown. I, like many travelers, was impacted at the start of this pandemic. My husband and I wrote a vision for our family on January 1st of this year. Our vision was centered all around adventure. We had lots of intentional visits planned to see family in Minnesota, Washington, D.C., and Utah. I had planned to include my 4-year-old daughter on business trips this year, and we had planned a few epic adventures to the Caribbean and Northern Europe, which are all highlighted by these photos. Of course, these trips were inevitably canceled, and I had to reconsider my options, opting for closer drivable destinations with less crowds. But while my plans were canceled and changed, My passion for travel remains undeterred, and I'm looking forward to the day when I can travel again and plan to make these trips more epic because of the pause in travel I've had. And I am not alone. At least half of U.S. consumers in a recent BCG survey said that they will resume some level of activity across specific categories, including different types of travel and various everyday activities. Once current government restrictions are lifted, that number increases to around 80% or higher when a vaccine to treat the virus is available. As travel advertisers like you begin to plan for recovery, it's important to understand how the industry will come out of this crisis. As you know, it will not recover all at once. As restrictions begin to be lifted, travel will likely restart in phases based on distance and use cases. And though we will still see travel demand come back over time, it will likely not look the same as it did before the pandemic, and will require you to plan your marketing campaigns differently than you have in the past. Planning for a new travel reality will require you to understand travelers' changing expectations and respond to early signs of movement, which will allow you to plan better campaigns. We look at recovery in three movement phases: local, regional, and national, and global. For example, we are seeing trends that people are most comfortable traveling short distances first. Vacations and local excursions will allow people to get out of the house, see friends, and explore their local area. Planning for travel reemergence based on movement allows you to target customers based on where they are and where you anticipate they'll be traveling, as well as adjust your messaging to connect with customers where they are. Keep in mind that recovery timing will likely vary by location. Some destinations may recover. Actually, some destinations will recover at a different pace than others. For each phase, there will be indicators in the market that will signal a loosening of travel restrictions. For example, in the local stage, you will start to see a relaxing of city, state, regional social distancing rules and reopenings of things like retail and restaurants. People will also start going back into the office. For regional travel, will begin as connecting regions begin to open up, and national and global travel will begin as global governments start reopening borders and routes. And this will be boosted as progress is made on treatments and vaccines. So diving in a little bit deeper, as you build your marketing plans, recognize these phases as they happen will allow you to change your targeting and messaging approach. For example, during the local phase, as stay-at-home orders lift in individual cities, people may reconnect with friends and families in their locations and look for ways to support local businesses in safe, responsible ways. Brands may also find pent-up demand in normal activities and breaks from household life. Consumers will be weighing their personal desires against concerns for their personal and community safety. Focusing on raising awareness of openings for hotels, activities, restaurants, etc., and keeping your messaging focused on people that are traveling from close by locations matters. And given that people will be looking for close getaways, leverage non-dynamic ads to include staycation bookings. Switching gears to regional. As the pandemic continues to subside and more restrictions are lifted, customers are going to start venturing further from home. This will begin to open up regional travel, as that still provides relatively easy transport back home in cases and circumstances. As to target customers that are venturing out for regional travel, plan nuanced messaging and close targeting, and engage your audience with experience that captures their attention and highlights your brand value proposition. Partnering with creators and influencers could allow you to tell your story in a more authentic voice for the targeted audience. In fact, 89% of people who rated a creator as trustworthy also rated the brand as trustworthy. We're seeing a lot of success with travel brands who partner with creators and influencers to get their messages across. Travel ads for retargeting is another unique opportunity to your audience. They are a good way to closely target a high intent audience that will be receptive to your messaging. They dynamically personalize your ads to remind your site visitors of what they viewed. And if you like, you can promote similar routes, properties, or other destinations. Finally, prospecting by geography allows you to combine geo-filter ad sets with geo-targeting to reemerge with travel ads for prospecting, helping you find people who are interested in your destination but may not have visited your website. And then switching gears to national and global, as the world opens back up after a vaccine has been distributed, advertisers can scale up their campaigns. As you plan for scaling national and global campaigns, you'll be able to leverage the full power of travel ads tools to match the right message and content to the consumer at the right time. Trip Consideration uses machine learning to find potential travelers who show different levels of intent to book a trip. It allows you to send one broad message to your whole audience to optimize delivery for those in market at any given time. Our prospecting travel ads are designed to inspire travelers who are further along in the planning process. Often when they're looking for more details about specific destinations or when they look like people interested in certain destinations, prospecting ads are dynamic and are able to surface what we think are the most relevant flights and hotels to travelers. And lastly, retargeting ads are similarly dynamic with property, route, and destination recommendations personalized for that user. Retargeting ads use your own website or app users as they're designed to push from the search into the booking. For flights, you can remind users the exact itinerary they viewed. For hotels, you can remind your site visitors of properties they viewed and nearby similar offerings. With destination ads, you can remind and inspire your site visitors with cities and points of interest that they've searched or interacted with or similar destinations. In addition to distance-based segmentation, there will also be specific personas that will be active early in the recovery phase. We anticipate that these groups will visit and book on travelers' websites earlier than others across geographies. Let's walk through some of the targeting tips and positioning thought starters to reach and address each throughout the 3 phases of recovery. Some personas that you might see on your site in the early phases of recovery include visitors, deal seekers, bucket listers, and reschedulers. Note that business travel will begin to rebound. However, changing workplace dynamics, such as working long-term remotely from home, as I'm here, will likely continue to have an impact. So let's dive into some of the personas. The primary motivation for visitors is connection with loved ones or maybe their home. For this group, focus your messaging and creative on topics that connect with their emotions. Be empathetic with updates on safety measures and encourage long-term stay discounts. You could identify them by shorter-term booking windows, where some APAC countries that opened early saw reduced timing between bookings and travel dates. You could also land this in prospecting formats for newly open markets, which will see more of this activity. Secondly is deal seekers. Deal seekers may be motivated by adventure and newly accessible travel opportunities, or be looking for travel but adjusting to new economic realities. Highlight discounts and deals, flexible bookings and cancellations, installment payments if offered, loyalty point bonuses, and safety messaging. Many deal seekers will book further out and rely on flexible cancellation policies to protect their investments. Sensitive messaging is key to reach this group in prospecting campaigns. And we know this is a great audience because even though people might not be ready to travel today, a lot of people who've been sitting at home for the last 6 months are really looking to book something in the future, so they have something to look forward to. Thirdly, bucket listers. Bucket listers will be eager to add another destination and or experience to their list. This is me. Motivated by the time stuck at home due to stay-at-home orders. Focus on dream trip messaging, highlight unique experiences that offer travel that other travelers may not appreciate or know about. Acknowledge your safety measures and flexible booking and cancellation policies, especially for larger ticket items. This group will likely lean into longer booking windows as they plan ahead. And then lastly, for reschedulers, let them know that you appreciate their business and that you're happy they are traveling with you again in order to rebuild trust. As with the other segments, highlight your safety measures and flexible booking cancellations and promote the control they have throughout your mobile app to make changes or adjustments if you have an app. Your own custom audiences are the best way to reach this group. Mobile app campaigns, again, if you have an app, may be a good way to empower them to use their credits to rebook easily. Recovery in travel will take time and depends largely on what happens over the coming months. As your team plans for this recovery, consider focusing on rebuilding your brand, preparing for geographic reemergence, and creating for personas of potential travelers that are searching your site first. We are here to help, so please let us know what we can do to continue to support you as you connect with new and existing travelers. We will be doing Q&A after this, so if you have any questions for me specifically on anything I've shared here or the Facebook and Instagram apps, please put them in the Q&A and we will hopefully be able to get to them. Thank you.
Yeah, great job. We've already got a couple of questions, so we'll stick around and we'll do the Q&A after Scott's session. The only thing I wanted to let everyone know is that if you are having audio or video problems, which a few people mentioned, we will send out the recording of this webinar after, where you can listen to it. So just be patient. We're sorry that there's challenges. There are bandwidth issues or just technical issues that some people experience depending on the location and where you're viewing the webinar from. All right, Scott, you're up.
Great. Well, thanks, Kirsten, and hello again, everyone. Really, the goals of my slides are really to try to touch on a lot of the topics that Kirsten already brought up, maybe share some additional new targeting tactics and messaging ideas that we have as well, and then again, try to push on why Sojourn believes that paid advertising on Facebook and Instagram is important. I think hearing it from an outside perspective, it would be helpful. And again, I've been with Sojourn now for a little over 4.5 years, and specifically 3 of my years have been hyper-focused on all things Facebook. So especially running campaigns for more SMB type properties, have started to really gain some experience running with a variety of campaigns across the globe with different sorts of KPIs, different things that make them unique. And so understanding some of the different campaign settings, targeting tactics, and things that can work well for those type of advertisers. So hoping I can provide your brands with some of that insight today. So going to the value of paid advertising on Facebook and Instagram. So travel's definitely changed, travel's definitely decreased, but in my opinion, I think the importance of paid advertising on Facebook and Instagram is just as important as ever. So in the last few months, we've seen plenty of advertisers completely pull back spend, reshift their spend, or change, what percent of their spend is on specific channels. And I think now is really a good opportunity to reevaluate where your ad spend is focused and really look in today's market and climate on what sort of channels will really help engage travelers and get them dreaming about their next stage, kind of like Kirsten mentioned. So that's where, obviously, in my opinion, Facebook and Instagram are great. There's a lot of stats, I think, that are recirculated and talked about quite often, the top one being just the reach of Facebook and Instagram. So it's very much throwing out that there's over, and we can actually stay on that same slide, but have thrown out the fact that there's more than 2 billion users actively on Facebook every month. And while that's crazy and that's a big value prop, I think the thing that drive home there is the fact that those users are not only going to Facebook and Instagram often, but they're very engaged while they're on those platforms. So it's shown by the fact that travelers spend 5x the amount of time on Facebook compared to any other travel-related touch point. And I think the other stat that might be a little bit more unnerving is the fact that there's over 5 million businesses actively advertising on Facebook. So if your brand isn't getting out there to those engaged travelers, surely your competitors are. So now going to the next slide. I'm not going to call out each individual stat here, but the one I wanted to call out was that 68% of millennials found inspiration for their next trip on Facebook. So there's definitely a lot to that stat, right? Lots of people can be influenced by their friends' photos. There's Facebook pages where people can get reach by posting for their Facebook page specifically. But I think the really important thing is to know that a paid advertising strategy is also vital to make sure that you are getting the right message to the right users at the right time. And you're going to get that through paid advertising to get the necessary reach and the target audience that you want. So going to the next slide and kind of re-talking about, trying to understand where your advertising spend currently is today. again, I think it's really important to focus on the advertising channel that is going to engage travelers and get them dreaming for their next trip, whether that's in the short term, whether it's long term, at least getting your brand out there and getting that destination, that hotel, whatever it may be, top of mind for those users. So again, Facebook's an incredibly engaging platform, right? What we see in the Facebook travel industry benchmark is that we see 0.9% click-through rates, and we see that on our Sojourn campaigns as well. Now, I don't want to share this benchmark in a way that's going to make people believe that that is the goal of Facebook campaigns and the focus of Facebook campaigns. I mean to share the stat and the fact that it can show how engaging those ads are compared to other platforms. So even comparing that to programmatic display advertising, I mean, that can be tenfold what we see in those channels. And so I think it really speaks to the fact that it's an engaging platform. I still think it's good to really, as an advertiser and as a brand, take a step back and focus on really what matters most in your advertising campaigns, right? So if you're trying to drive conversions for your property, or you're trying to bring new qualified website traffic to your page, focus on the kind of metrics that are going to get there. So myself as a consumer, if I'm on Facebook, I can be incredibly influenced by a lot of the ads I've seen. I probably purchase more things than I would like to admit by the influence I've seen from Facebook ads, but I don't personally click on those ads a lot. That doesn't mean the ads didn't influence me, and that's where I'm trying to drive home the point that although the ads can be engaging, focusing on things like clicks may not be the only way to focus on what sort of engagement you're getting from your Facebook ads. There's more to that story and the tracking available. So if we go to the next slide, kind of I've already touched on the fact that, again, Facebook ads can be incredibly engaging, but there's other benefits as well. So one of the ones that I really think is cool is the cross-device performance analysis. So, we at Sojourn were really able to focus a lot of our ad spend on where the users are, right? When I use Facebook, when most people use Facebook and Instagram, they're on a mobile device. But again, with a lot of the SMB type clients we work with, we see that mobile conversions don't happen often, right? People and consumers still feel very comfortable doing that, and it creates a better user experience on a desktop device. So to be able to target our ads and influence people on the devices that they typically are on those applications, but then to be able to track them across the devices that they're very comfortable making bookings has been a really strong insight and a game changer on Facebook, which is really a challenge in a lot of the other channels that we run. The other part is the ad delivery on Facebook. So again, all ads are about serving the right ad to the right user at the right time. And I think we can really focus on who the right users are and what the timing may be for those ads. But there's another layer that Facebook provides us in addition to that to be able to really make our campaigns effective. And that's how they optimize ad delivery. So again, focusing on what campaign objective matters most for us or for brands, and focusing on that. So are you trying to find converters? Are you trying to find qualified website traffic? Or to the point earlier, do you want clickers? Facebook's able to understand who you are as a Facebook user and focus its delivery on the things and the people that are going to let you hit that goal. So that's been another really effective strategy that we've used, and really can be a changing, moving target depending on where specific clients are and what their campaign goals are. The next one, and it's my final pitch and spiel on the value of Facebook and Instagram, and it's just the ad formats as well. So we often see a lot of clients coming to us with questions saying, hey, which ad format is best for me? Should I be running photos alone? Should I run carousel? Should I only run video? Or should I only run story ads or ads specifically on newsfeed on Facebook and Instagram? And my answer to all those, for the most part, is no, right? Using an all-encompassing approach. If you have video, trying to add that into what you're doing today. I think being able to go to engage travelers and bring a different message in a different ad format is only going to make a more compelling storyline for your brand. And again, not really focusing on specific placements too. I think every brand is different. There's different sorts of consumers that go to those specific destinations or hotels, and being able to kind of let Facebook optimize and see where they're seeing performance is really going to be the best strategy to drive the highest amount of output, again, regardless of what your campaign KPI is. So moving on, the next one is really just on some different targeting tactics and messaging ideas for both short-term and long-term travelers. And I wouldn't say it's even the best idea to focus on, one thing today and another thing in the future. I think focusing on both short-term and long-term travelers both have values in your campaigns. Obviously, the short-term travelers are people that are going to hopefully stay at your hotels or travel to your destinations in the short term, and it may be more of a upper funnel KPI for more of those long-term travelers. So how can you start to build that brand awareness, get those people dreaming and want to stay at your properties? So focusing on the short term, again, I think a lot of what Kirsten brought up earlier completely holds true, right? So I think every single market is in a completely different scenario right now. There may be some people that are more willing to travel short term versus they are long term. But I think, again, focusing on those more local drive markets in the short term is definitely going to be the kind of people that will come to your destination in the short term. So how can you write the ad copy that will influence those travelers? How can you, another idea is just partnering with maybe nearby restaurants or attractions to, again, offer some sort of deals or some sort of collaboration to get people inspired to come to your destination, but also feel safe while doing so. Some other interesting things that we've seen clients do, and again, I think now and more than ever is a time to be creative, is focusing on e-learning and working from home users, right? So many schools around the country and the globe are focusing on e-learning, having people stay at home and e-learn, and myself included, been working from home now for quite a while. So I think the idea of how you can influence and message to those people and try to influence them to have a staycation or relax and get out of the house and work from somewhere else, or take the family and e-learn from somewhere else, is a very creative, compelling way that, again, can influence people to do something in the short term while really trying to make sure that the messaging is also pushing some of the safety measures and making people feel comfortable there. Moving to the next slide, really trying to shift towards like a longer term focus. So the first thing I would talk about, I guess, with a new targeting tactic, or it may not be new for a lot of people, but just really trying to sell the idea of retargeting and more so converter retargeting at a time like this. So we get a lot of pushback at times where, and we can go to the next slide here, but we get a lot of pushback at times that brands believe once a user's gone to their website or stayed with them, they're going to stay forever loyal. And while that might be true to an extent, I think, again, now is a really important time to try to focus on re-engaging those people, especially the people that have previously converted with your hotel. So for myself, I went to Colorado on a trip with my fiance last month, and I went to a place that I've already stayed at before. I did a lot of the activities that I've already done before. And the reason for me to do that is because it was a known, safe, enjoyable place that I've been before. And so I think there's enough unknowns and risks in the world right now where, for me personally, I wanted to focus on something that I felt very comfortable, and I wasn't adding another risk to the already giant list of unknowns today. So I think, again, that's a really important strategy that you can use in your campaigns. How can you apply the messaging to re-welcome back those people, right? How can you push some of the safety measures that may have changed from when that last person stayed at that property? But again, knowing that those users have likely really enjoyed their stays to that specific city or that specific hotel or that specific attraction, think of ways to try to re-engage them and welcome them back. I think going off of that as well, utilizing some of the different Facebook targeting tactics. So building lookalike audiences off of those who have converted. So it'll be completely unique users. Facebook can do a good job of understanding the characteristics of those users and what made them unique, and trying to find similar people that, again, that are like that base of users that have previously stayed at your property. Another one to call out is unique to Sojourn. So Sojourn's uniquely positioned in the fact that we partner with some of the top travel brands globally. So we have very unique, very valuable, very interesting data right now that can kind of influence and educate us on where certain markets are starting to recover sooner than others, where people are really showing intent to travel at given times, what users are showing more intent to travel in the short term, which users are looking to travel in the long term. And we can build audiences and push those into Facebook to target those specific people. So again, I think it's the value prop as well to an opportunity where we could focus on those short-term travelers to your specific destination and build audiences off of that, and use those in collaboration and with a lot of the different Facebook targeting tactics available. I don't, I don't think there's ever going to be an answer where there's an all-in one-size-fits approach to campaign targeting, short-term and long-term, to say, let's only use retargeting, let's only use affinity audiences, let's only use Sojourn partner audiences. But I think understanding that each client is different and being able to test and learn and try to drive those performance things is really what matters most, and keeping those things open. So going to the next slide here is also just, again, additional visual ideas or messaging ideas that, again, I think you could focus on for both your short-term and long-term travelers. So I think some of the things that I like from Kirsten's slide specifically we're focusing your visuals on, as little to no people as possible. So there were a couple images where it showed people just laying by the pool, and I think being able to showcase a relaxing stay, a safe stay, is going to be an extremely compelling message and visual that you can provide to users today. Also focusing again on those deal seekers. So everyone is definitely trying to make as much revenue as they can right now, but there are, price is definitely going to be a giant factor for a lot of people in deciding if they are going to be willing to go to a specific destination. So how can you offer them different promo codes, different, even incentivizing local travelers? So there's an idea of having people show their driver's license or their ID card to show that they are a local traveler and giving them a discount for staying safe, right, from doing someone who's only a drive market away from your destination. And then I think another one is really pushing and driving home the point that you have flexible booking options. So do you have free cancellations? Can you book those hotel stays or those airlines for later on, and really pushing that to try to keep users engaged. So those are the slides I have. Again, like Kirsten, here to answer any and all questions people may have. And yeah, again, thanks for the opportunity to chat.
Great presentation. Thanks, Scott. So, Kirsten, why don't we kick it off with a fairly straightforward question? We got a lot of live questions so far, so I just want to let everyone know that I don't know if we'll have time to get to all of them. But why don't we start saying very general? Like, if you're new to Facebook, like I think the typical Sojourn advertiser, they start with display and then they start to add other channels, and Facebook's one of the channels that they add. How do you recommend they get started with advertising on Facebook and Instagram?
Great question. I always, when I get this question, ask people, what are your goals? So I think before you even get started, I think you need to determine, what are the goals? Am I looking to drive brand awareness? Am I looking to drive consideration? Do I want to drive a booking? Do I want a hybrid, of all of the above? If you are a hotel or a partner that does commerce on your site, my general recommendation is to start at the lowest funnel and try to maximize the bookings that you can get, which would be with something like retargeting. You do need to have the pixel installed so that we can see people who visited your site and then, show them the messages that you want. But generally, if you are a brand that does some sort of commerce booking on your site, I think maximizing lower funnel and then working your way up is the best way to start. On the flip side, if you are a DMO and looking to sort of drive brand value and promise about your destination, then you may want to start with more of a brand message and do a brand campaign that would either be to drive eyeballs or potential video views if you have videos, but really get the word out about. But my number one recommendation for everybody is know what your goal is and have one goal in mind per campaign, and then go from there.
Scott, do you have anything to add? I mean, you see people who at Sojourn, start on the display side and they try to branch out from there. What do you recommend to people when they get started with Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, and I think another thing I would even add too is, I think when people think about paid advertising on Facebook and Instagram, they think they need to have some giant, large budget up front just to be able to run that. And there's solutions that can work well for clients at a variety of where their budgets are. So again, I would totally re-echo what Kirsten said is, we can focus on building the campaign and trying to target the right users for you if you have a great understanding of what your campaign goal is. So I think a lot of what people, what would be a good thing to do is also take a step back and kind of see where your brand is today. So some people may want some of that lower funnel activity, but when you look at their website, what they're really struggling with today is just bringing in users to their website and getting that brand awareness. And so things definitely aren't going to happen overnight where you turn on a Facebook and Instagram campaign and tomorrow you've got an influx of conversions. Like, that's just not going to happen. And so it can take time and teaching people to kind of continually be patient and have that test and learn approach, right? Every advertiser is completely different too. And so the strategies that we may have to go about to hit those KPIs may vary.
Great. So the most obvious question, I think, is like, what are the differences between the two platforms, right? Like, we have Instagram and Facebook both available. I know there's scale differences, but why don't you both help us understand the differences? And of course, we'll start with you, Kirsten.
Sure. I want to start by saying there are definitely differences between how people use the platform. Facebook is more focused on community. As you will see, I think many of you have probably experienced our group or be in a Facebook group. I think that is a big way that people are using Facebook to sort of drive connection and community for topics that they care about or friends and family. Instagram is more of a visual platform centered around photo and video content. And people sort of use it as a creative expression in a lot of ways. And so there are definitely differences. However, one thing I want to highlight is when you're thinking about advertising, we have a lot of crossover on the platforms, and you have no way of predicting where I'm going to be when. So our strong recommendation, what Scott talked about in his presentation a little bit, is not to be so focused on the platform necessarily, but focus on the campaign and advertise across both platforms. When you do set up a campaign, you can check a box to say, do I want to advertise on Facebook only, Instagram only, or both? And our strong recommendation is to click both and allow the machine to reach people where they are with your message. We call that machine learning.
Yeah, totally agree. I think the other part I would add is, I think what Facebook and Sojourn can do really well is again, focusing on the right users at the right time. But I think where advertisers can help us a ton and make sure their campaigns are performing at their peak performance is really on the messaging side. Individual brands are going to understand their brands better than we will. And so really focusing on a lot of the messaging ideas that we gave today and the visual sides. So are you uploading visuals that are going to be friendly in every single ad placement that you could be in? So Instagram is more of a visual, mobile friendly environment, and Facebook can be, really a mixture of use on mobile and desktop. But I think making sure we have the right assets and images and ad copy for those formats will really make sure that they yield the best performance. And again, allow Facebook to understand where they are seeing performance. And I think letting the algorithms do their thing and start optimizing as the campaign runs.
Yeah, and if I could build on just one part of that, when you are thinking about building creative, instead of thinking about building for platform, it's important to think about building for placement. And so there's a pretty simple way to think about this, and this isn't all encompassing of every single placement, but if you think about building creative, you want to think about building for feed, which exists on both Facebook and Instagram, stories, which exists on both Facebook and Instagram, and then an in-stream or like a 16:9 video, which is Facebook only. And so if you build, especially if you have video, if you build for those three placements and then sort of click in that you're open to advertising on both platforms in all of those placements, you'll generally get the cheapest CPM because you're going to allow machine learning to find people where they are. So if I spend a lot of time in Facebook Watch, I might see an ad, I might see a video views ad within watch content versus if I'm spending a ton of time in stories or feed. And so I think, it's important to consider platform, but it's more important to consider placement and how you're building your campaigns to reach people wherever they are when they are.
Great. You mentioned cross-channel, cross-platforms campaigns. There was a couple people who are interested in just hearing what the plans are for WhatsApp, if you can share anything with us.
We don't have much to share at the moment. I will say we tend to learn on one platform and then roll out to many. So we've done a lot of testing on Instagram and then rolling out to Facebook. So as you saw, we started with stories on Instagram and then rolled it out to Facebook. It's also on WhatsApp. And so I would anticipate more to come in the future. I don't have much to share on WhatsApp. There are advertising opportunities that exist more outside of the US. I know we have a global audience here, but I don't have much to share about like future endeavors that we're doing with advertising on WhatsApp. But I would say stay tuned to our blog because that is where most things get announced.
Great. There are a lot of people who, they have small businesses, family-owned hotels and stuff, and they're just wondering, like, how much budget do they need? How do they get started? How do they combine organic and paid? Right? I know, Scott, you kind of touched on this, but maybe you could both just give some advice for people who, small business, small budget, they want to obviously extend, I think, what they're doing with organic social through paid.
Yeah, I can happy to start on that one. I think the nice part, at least with Sojourn, what we try to offer is a lot of flexibility, I guess, with all the advertisers that we work with. So we do work plenty with a lot of smaller independent boutique hotels. And so for the hotels specifically, I think we have a couple different options. Like one, if upfront budget can be a concern, we do offer a commission model. And so really we are hyper focused on driving those conversions for hoteliers and then having them pay a specific commission off those bookings. We do offer more of a media-based offering that I think goes as low as $299 a month. So can focus though on more really for those campaigns on that upper funnel strategy. And if we do see enough value in it, we'll definitely obviously try to drive the conversion activity we can too. So try to offer the flexibility depending on where businesses are at the specific moment. Definitely understand, especially in the times we are today, that ad spend can be really difficult to get buy-in as well. And so try to offer that flexibility.
Yeah, and then just to build on that, I would also say, I think the question centered around organic plus paid. I think from an organic perspective, like you don't have to have any money to build a community. And so, engaging with people who have raised their hand to say, I want to hear more from your brand on either Facebook or Instagram is a really important part of staying connected, even when people can't travel. And we're finding sort of communities popping up about people wanting to plan trips or learn more or understand safety guidelines, et cetera. So I would say, like, number one, continue to build your community, even if you're not open. I know there are some destinations that aren't currently open because of government restrictions. And then, there are ways, I would just make sure that your advertising messaging doesn't disconnect from how you're building with your community. You don't have to have a lot of budget, as the Sojourn team mentioned. We don't have any minimums. I would say, when you go in and build campaigns in the systems, it will give you ranges of what you can expect, either from a CPM or a CPA perspective based on budget levels and timing. So that's a really great way to sort of understand if my goals are X, go into the system and sort of build a campaign based around that to get a potential budget range that can help you. And then again, a test and learn approach to advertising is really important to sort of refine your goals and hopefully get you closer to what you want. But I would say, like, you don't have to have any money to continue to build your community. And that's something I would strongly recommend doing, even if your destination is closed.
Yeah, that's great. There are people asking questions about, hey, my destination's closed. What do I do? How about helping people understand how to optimize for conversion, right? I think most people's familiarity with these platforms is as a user, where they're engaging with their friends and family or posting fun pics. What do you recommend to them when they need to put themselves in the shoes of a marketer, right? And they've really got to encourage people to engage and hopefully convert.
Want me to start, or do you want to start, Scott?
Yeah, I can start again. I think I think I wouldn't say there's ever going to be like one size fits all approach. Every advertiser can vary so much based off of different insights that we see. So I mean, again, even to your point earlier, Gregory, around, hey, my market's really shut down, what can I do today? I think where the importance there is to at least start to build the brand awareness and start to build the clientele and users that are starting to dream about coming to your destination. And then once things do open up, is being really ready to communicate that that is the case, and start to drive those users back to your site, re-engaging people who have previously stayed. And so I think, again, there's a lot of going back to the test and learn approach, whether it's tinkering with different targeting tactics, so different mixes of affinity targeting, retargeting audiences, a lot of really powerful Facebook targeting tactics. So even bringing up the trip consideration, interest behavior targeting, really it's going to be a lot of trial and error. So starting to run that campaign, seeing what is working well, even testing the different delivery optimizations within Facebook. So how are we optimizing even the ad delivery, right? Are we telling Facebook to focus on people that we're in the, we're really building up upper funnel tactics. So we're trying to bring more qualified website traffic to the site today. Or do you have enough of a conversion pool for us to be able to optimize off people who are likely to book and are showing intent today to book? So I know there's a lot in that answer, but really at the end of the day, it does go to a lot of test and learn. And that's what I spend my day, enjoying looking at those kind of things and trying to solve that for clients too.
I mean, great answer. The only thing I would build is there's a lot of different levers you can play with to optimize towards conversions. In the most simplistic form, it would be, like Scott said, to test different targeting. I would also play with different creative and different messaging to see what's landing with the audience. You have the ability, and we strongly recommend that you upload multiple assets and let our machine learning take over. And it will basically serve the right asset to the right people. And once we understand what type of asset is converting more, we will just continue to serve that asset and not serve others. So I would say also don't be too attached to specific creatives, but you can test different messaging, different creatives. Like, for example, you could test, this is a very bad example, but you could test a blue background versus a red background and see what people are optimizing for. There's so many different levers you can pull, but I would say don't go too, another strong example, don't go too micro segmented, and don't touch the buttons too much, or you won't allow the machine learning to do its thing and hopefully drive strong and inexpensive conversions for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, the more engaging and relevant your ad is, right, the more people engage with that, the more that they're completing whatever that action is. I think in some ways, a lot of ways, Facebook will optimize, and potentially your reach and conversions could continually increase by, again, having that compelling messaging that's getting people to do your desired action. Because I think, again, to our earlier point, we can really focus on who those users are and when we're serving ads to them, but that's the final point that's going to get that user to do your desired action.
They have this really kind of interesting tactical question, and I'll ask it, and then I'll kind of make it more relevant to the everyone in the audience. So this person works in the airport parking at LAX, and they're curious what you would recommend them to target people that are obviously people that would want to use their paid parking service at the airport. And so I think at the higher level, a lot of the companies that we deal with have some kind of regional, local, or destination-based business, and obviously to some degree this is the area that Sojourn specializes in, right? Finding travelers. So I don't know if you have a specific recommendation for our friend here at LAX and how you could perhaps make that relevant to everyone who is facing this type of challenge.
Yeah, so I know one thing, not putting my Sojourn hat on yet, but even within Facebook, I know there's geo-based targeting for not where people specifically reside, but even while they are in a specific destination, can focus on that. So I think in that case, focusing on people that are in that geo at that specific time could be effective. Now, putting the Sojourn hat on, I think, Gregory, to your point is, yeah, we do have a lot of really cool partner data that gives us insight into when users are going to specific destinations at specific times. And so can totally focus on uploading audiences for that specific airport. And then again, play around with the timing of when those users plan to go to that place as well.
Yep, and the only thing I would add is if you have the ability to prepay, it could, and you offer discounts, it could be interesting to try to do some conversions online to get people to potentially like prepay for their parking at a discount and use a conversion type tactic versus just a brand awareness tactic, which is my parking lot exists and we want to serve you as you're taking your next destination, your next trip. But there's many different ways that you can slice targeting. And my number one recommendation for anyone trying to get started is just to go in the platform and play, or partner up. You know, even before you have a partnership like Sojourn, you can go in the platform and play to sort of get a sense of what the different levers are, so that when you do call a partner like Sojourn, you can give more specific details on what you're looking for, and they can help guide you right out of the gate there as well.
Excellent. Well, I think we're going to try to wrap this up here. Do either of you want to provide our audience with some final words?
Well, for me, just want to thank everyone again for letting me get a chat. I think again, it's been fun to be able to look at these campaigns at such a micro level for advertisers across the globe. I understand it's a really challenging, difficult time, but you know, we're all here to help and all in this together as well. So you know, how Sojourn, how Facebook can help you guys, you know, would love to continue conversations and see how we can drive, again, whatever that overall campaign goal is. So building that brand awareness today, or getting people to convert if that's what is possible today given people's markets.
Yeah, and I want to thank Sojourn for inviting me to join this. This was really fun. I want to offer, you know, sincerest empathy to everybody on the phone. We understand that what works before doesn't work today, and you know, hopefully you got some tips and tricks out of this that you can use to jumpstart your marketing when your markets start to open up. We are really here for you to help you, you know, get strong results and find the right people at the right time as well. And so I think, you know, just playing with the platform, diving into your community and starting to test and learn on what works is my biggest advice. And yeah, I just want to thank you guys, and thanks everybody for joining.
Yeah, no, and of course, thanks both you and Scott and Kirsten for joining. I think you guys did a fantastic job. The presentations were excellent. The Q&A was even better. We got tons of questions, which is fantastic. And so I just want to let everyone know, we will send out the webinar survey. And so we want your feedback. We will use it to improve these webinars, get better guests, and make it an overall more educational experience. And we are doing these now twice a month. So we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.